Well, hello everybody. Welcome to P.B.M. Money. Well, today I want to talk about Save, Spend, Live. Now, it is not the title of a new James Bond movie. Save, Spend, Live. I recently did a video called We Win, and which I talked about a financial game that we've been playing on our YouTube site, and we started another one, by the way. If you'd like to play along with us and see if you can do it, go and listen to the video We Win. But anyway, part of that financial game was to cut my expenses. And so I went through and I did a few. I still haven't realized the cost savings on one of them. I mean, I can see it's going to be huge, was on my utilities. And, but we'll get to that. Save, Spend, Live. What I'm talking about is frugally. Not cheaply, frugally. And I'm going to explain as we go. As an example, let's talk about save. Frugal saving. How do you frugally save? Well, especially if you have very little money, you're going to have to be very creative to find some money to save. Now, when I first got started, the way that I did it was cashback credit cards. And it would take me a long time to get $500 because my mutual fund, that's the smallest amount that you can put in. So I would do Discover cashback credit card, $500, and it would take me a couple of years. So it was very slow. But you can find other ways. As an example, as I was getting ready to tell you about the utilities, I'm on a level payment plan, and I'm currently paying $80-something a month. I suspect that's going to be cut in half come July, just because I'm being frugal on how I do it. And the two big ones is I keep my water heater off until I need it. That's a $220. And I keep my stove off until I need it. And when I say off, I don't mean I mean I go to the fuse box and close the fuse off. Because there's something called phantom electricity that even when you're not using it, the electricity is still going around. And if you don't believe me, turn off all the lights and all the fans and everything in your house and go out and look at your wheel spinning around on your electric meter. That's phantom electricity. So I cut out the phantom electricity, and then I adjust my thermostat when I leave and come home. And those two things will knock it in half. I'm sure of it. So now one of the things, well, I'll cover that later. But you can use many different tools to save. You know, when you live frugally, you need to be prepared for many things. So you need to have like an emergency fund. You need to have sinking funds that you can put a little bit of cash into each week or each month, so that when the emergency happens, or your car breaks down, or you have to go to the doctor and you need to, so instead of being in a panic and everything happening, you go to your emergency fund, you take the cash, you pay the bill, you move on. But there's different ones you can use, you know, like Webull or Robinhood. I prefer Robinhood. It's easier. The charts are not as in depth, but the ones they do have are very easy to read. You can do research on there. Not a lot, but that's why they have online. You can go online and Google specifics if that's what you want to do. But there's all different ways to do it frugally. And why is Robinhood frugal? Because you can buy fractional shares. If it requires $158 to buy a share of Pepsi, you can buy a $10 share of Pepsi stock. So it doesn't take a whole lot. It just takes getting started. Being frugal does not mean being cheap. It means trying to achieve the same things for less. Frugal spending. Okay, I've got so many examples of cheap versus frugal. I'll give you one as an example. When I was young, my dad used to do projects around the house. And I remember one time we were redoing our basement, which was all concrete, and we were going to make it part of the living space. And at the time, early 70s, we were putting paneling in our basement. It's not hard to do, but he went to buy the lumber for the 2x4s. And he went to the discount bin, and you know what happened. They were all crooked and nail holes all over because he couldn't follow them. Then we went to buy paneling. And if you know anything about paneling, the good stuff is thick. The cheap stuff, he bought the cheap stuff. So we get it home and we put it up, and it'd get humid downstairs and it'd start warping and bending, and every time you just hit it a little bit, it cracked, and that's cheap. That's being cheap. A frugal way to have done that would have been to go to the guy at the store and say, this is what I'm doing, what do you recommend? And he's going to show you the most expensive thing, and then you say, well, how can I get the same thing for less? And he'll show you. I've done this my whole life, and I've taught all my kids. You don't buy the cheapest, you don't buy the most expensive, you buy the best quality for the least price. Served them all well. They've all told me they do that, and they've all told me it's never failed. My sister passed away a few years ago. Now, she did not make a lot of money. She was on disability. But when she died, we went through her jewelry box, and it was loaded with jewelry. It was all costume. It wasn't worth a plug nickel. Being frugal is saving your money and go buy yourself a nice piece of jewelry. I mean, I've been researching for 2 months on what kind of jewelry I want to get because I'm planning on, I haven't decided yet, but I'm thinking as part of our game is to hold what cash I do have, to have it hold its value over time instead of it losing value sitting in the bank. And I was thinking if I put it into jewelry or like watches or rings or bracelets or something, that if the market goes down, I can go cash that in and it will still hold its value. There's a rule of thumb, by the way, that says an ounce of gold 100 years ago would buy a nice suit. And throughout history, in the States anyway, the price of an ounce of gold will still buy you a nice suit. The last time I checked, gold was at $1,600 or $1,700 an ounce. That'll buy you a nice suit. And it's always been that way. Being frugal is important to becoming wealthy. Being cheap is a way to stay poor. What do I mean? Well, with the example of my dad, when we went to sell the house, the paneling was warped, it was cracked, it took away from the value of the house. He didn't get full price. When my sister passed away, there wasn't anything in her apartment that was worth a plug nickel except her TV and a computer. And she had taken those loans out, I don't know what they're called, unsecured personal loans that charge you 5,000%. She had a bunch of those that had to be paid and no money to pay them. She was never going to become wealthy. I make probably what she was making on disability, okay? And I'm doing okay, all right? If I pass away, they'll be fine. don't be cheap. Be frugal. And as I said in the last video, I was figuring the other day that I live on about $1,100 a month, and I could go lower, but in order for me to do that, I would have to inconvenience my daughter, and I'm not prepared to do that, at least until she's, you know, out of college and got a job and can pay for her own phone. So I'm not going to do that. I mean, I'm fine. I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to hurt somebody else to make a buck. But being frugal is important. Like when you go to buy clothes, it's okay to go to you know, secondhand places to get your clothing, or it's okay to go buy new. Just shop on sale, do your research, use cashback credit cards, use coupons, use apps on your phone like Groupon. Do it smartly. Don't just go out and buy the cheapest blouse and the cheapest pair of tennis shoes you can find, because you'll be replacing them in 3 months. And for all the times you've replaced them, you could have bought one good pair. I wear tennis shoes every day of my life, and I've got 2 pair out there. One for my first job that I've had for 3 or 4 years, and the other pair for my second job. I've had those for 4 or 5 years. They're still fine. And tennis shoes wear out, by the way. And the ones that I wear on my regular job are wearing out. I am going to have to go get some more tennis shoes. But be frugal, not cheap. There is a huge, huge difference. Spend wisely, not lavishly. Now, what is that guy's name? Graham Stephan. Now he spends, to me, very lavishly. Hundreds of thousands of dollars on a car. However, because of his program, because of his taxes, and because he did it smartly, he's not going to pay for those expensive cars. The business will pay for it, Uncle Sam will pay for it, and YouTube will pay for it. That's being frugal, not cheap. Cheap would have been to go out and buy a second-hand used Ford. I mean, if you got to do what you got to do, I've done that. When I had no money and I had no choices, I had to buy junkers. And I ran my credit card bills up trying to keep them on the road. Until finally, one day, I was able to go lease a car and then turn around and buy it. And now I drive a decent car and my credit cards are down to 0. Frugal, not cheap. Now the last one I want to talk about is living frugally. When I got married to my first wife, we were both very good with money. We saved a lot. We bought nice homes. We drove nice cars. We had nice furniture, blah, blah, blah. And neither one of us made a lot of money. But we did smart things with our money. We took 2 or 3 vacations a year. We had a timeshare down in Florida. I mean, we were doing okay. She passed away. I got married to my second wife. Not so much. We'd been married about 2 years, and she says, well, how come you and her had real estate and businesses and vacations, and you and I don't have anything? And I looked at her and I said, are you kidding me? You spend money faster than I can make it. I'll give you an example. My first wife and I, we had this big glass jar. Well, actually we had 2 of them. We put pennies in one and silver in the other. And we did this for about 5 years. And we took it one day to the bank, cashed it in. We had enough money in there to pay for a trip to the Bahamas. No kidding. 2 weeks. So I decided I was going to do the same thing at my second house. And I'd already had a start on it from being single. And I don't know, there was probably a couple $100 in there. Well, I came home early from work one day, and her and the kids had that jar tipped upside down, picking out all the quarters. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, well, I'm getting ready to take the kids to the pool and I need some money. See, in my mind, if you don't have money, you don't go to the pool. In her mind, if she wants to go to the pool, she'd just get the money from anywhere. You know, charge it on a credit card, write a check, go to the bank, you know, steal from the jar, whatever it takes, just as long as I get what I want right now. That's cheap. And she still lives cheaply. She will never have anything. Her grandma died, left her $10,000 in cash. She took the kids on a trip to Florida. No. She did one thing, I don't remember what it was, and then she asked me what I would do with the rest of it. So I took her to the bank, I bought a certificate of deposit, and I did that for a reason. I thought that locking it up for 2 years and at the cost of a penalty, it would keep her out of the money. Now this was before we were married. 2 months later, she and her girls are taking a trip to Florida. And I said, how are you paying for this? And she said, oh, I went and cashed in that CD. Wow. So, spend safely. Spend frugally, but spend wisely. Don't live cheaply. And for you young guys and gals out there, if you're dating, make sure that the person that you're dating and getting serious about has the same type of views of money. Because if you don't, you will end up in a not good way. Because the spender always gets their way and the saver is always thought to be selfish. And that's the way that goes. Well, I went a little longer than I wanted to, but I think it's a good message. I think it's important. Save, spend, live frugally. Well, you guys have a great week and happy frugal investing.